Hey guys, welcome back to Walking with Jesus Daily. We are in day 90. Man, it's going to be fun when we say day 100. I mean, think that's only like 10 or 11 days away or whatever it is. That's pretty exciting. But 90 is pretty exciting itself. That means that for 90 days this year, um, or it doesn't even matter if you're just now starting, you are dedicating specific special time to be with God. And this is the milk section of today's reading or today's Devo. Um, and it's a fun one. It's an interesting one. I hear all the time about people who go to this section of verses to define who Jesus is, or to justify something about their life. And well, hopefully, my hope is that today we're going to read it for what it actually is and let God speak, let His Word speak. Let Him open our minds and our hearts to what the truth is about this. And let that be how we apply it into our lives and how we learn and have a relationship with Jesus. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of this year. Is not to see how much knowledge we can gain about Jesus or God. It's not how many Bible verses that we can memorize, but it is your own personal one-on-one relationship with Jesus. That is what we're trying to achieve this year. If you have that, no one can take that from you, and you will desire more and more of Him, and prayer will be just what happens when you blink for too long. Being in the Word will be what happens when you have a spare moment. So let's dig into today's lesson, and we'll get a nice little cup of a little 2%. All right. We are in John chapter 2. We're following right along. Interesting enough that this has been kind of in chronological order in John so far. But we're going to start in chapter 2, verse 12. We just read that after the wedding in Cana, Jesus, with his mom, his brothers, and his disciples, went to Capernaum, and they were there for a few days. In verse 13, it says this: "The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem." So a couple things. Just remember, one, anytime you're going towards Jerusalem, you're going up. No matter where you are on a map, no matter what direction it is, no matter if you're... It doesn't matter what it is. It's always up to Jerusalem, and it's always down if you're going away. So if you read in verse 12, it says, "After this, he went down to Capernaum," even though Capernaum is north of Cana. That way the writing makes sense. Okay? The Passover was one of, I believe, 3 Jewish feasts that that all the men had to attend, that had to be at. And the Passover was important because the Passover of the Jews went all the way back to the 10th plague in Egypt, the freeing of slavery, how the blood on the doorposts allowed for death to pass over that home and not take the firstborn. That's a big deal. So they celebrated the Passover as God instructed them to do, so that they remembered. The reason that we celebrate is so that we remember. Like a birthday, let's say we celebrate a birthday. It's supposed to be so that we celebrate or we remember that on this day, so many years ago, you were born. And these were the things about you, and this is how we felt, and God blessed us with a person. It's supposed to point us back to God. We have pretty much made it a day of self-celebration and a day of self-praise. But it's supposed to be, all things are supposed to be a celebration to God. I better get through this pretty quick. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons and the money changers sitting there. Now, you would say, well, what's the problem with this? Well, they were doing this in the Gentile courts. They were doing this in the place where, okay, if you got to look at the temple, and we'll talk about it, but there were certain places that you were allowed to go and certain places you weren't allowed to go, because it was God's temple, and it's the way he made it. But the selling of sheep and oxen and pigeons and money changers was for the purpose of making a profit. And they were trying to rip people off that were traveling from long distances. Sometimes people were just lazy and they didn't try to prepare for the Passover, so they would just go there and buy whatever there was. The money changers were there to exchange currency for another currency to make money off of them. This was not a place to set up a business, nor was it a place that honest business was run. So just first understand that. Verse 15, it says, and making a whip of cords. So I don't think Jesus was just like in the corner, like, braiding something together. I think he grabbed some cords and made out of it a whip, and he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen. He poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. Now, imagine the uproar this would cause. You're talking about people's money here. The true God of humanity. Money. Driving out people, driving out animals, and overturning money. Money just flying all over the place. You're like, is Jesus sinning here? Is he having a fit? Is he having a fit of rage that has overcome him? Let's keep reading. And he told those who sold the pigeons, take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade. It says, his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house will consume me. Now, Jesus had just called several of them. He told Nathanael something that was impossible. He turned water into wine for a wedding, which is impossible. His disciples are beginning to see things. But you got to imagine this made them maybe a little bit uncomfortable. So, his words are, do not make my Father's house a house of trade. He's saying, this is not the place for this. My Father's house was never meant for this. They may think that he's saying my Father as in we say Father today, right, when we talk to God. But he was literally saying, this is where my Father dwells when he comes to you. How dare you turn this into a place where people are being taken advantage of and livelihood is made. This is not the place for this. Get out. You know this isn't the place for this. So in verse 18, it says, so the Jews said to him, what sign do you show us for doing these things? Like, prove that you're something or somebody. How dare you do this? You don't have the right to do this. The Jews said this to him. Jesus answered them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Now, can we take 1 minute and just see how cool this is? I know I'm going over time, but He's in the temple, and he is the temple. Isn't that cool? The Jews then said, "It's taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days." But he was speaking about the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. All right, guys, I'll see you in the meat.